Welcome to episode 25 of the Shaffer Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Shaffer. My guest in this episode is character animator Phil Lockerby. Phil is one of those rare character animators who has remained consistently employed for the last 20 years, which have been some of the most difficult years for 2D character animators. He animated on the Triplets of Belleville, The Little Prince, and he directed some of the animated episodes for Stephen Colbert's Colbert Report. How did you get into animation?
Good question. I think there was a class I was taking in community college. It was a design course, and the teacher said, everyone stand up. We're going to do 2 projects this semester. One's going to be design and one's going to be animation. So choose. Yeah. And so everyone went over to design.
Really?
Except for me and Justin Lee.
Now this was where?
In Surrey, BC. So we did a little, it was an animation-based project, and I had a storyboard with a little storyline. And we didn't actually do the animation part of it, but we did storyboarding, and we got a chance to visit Emily Carr College of Art and Design, and they had an animation program there, so we got to sort of see the process. And
So you did it on paper and you were shooting on a camera?
We didn't even get that far. No, it was just storyboards. But I knew from that point forward, that was my choice, my career choice, was going to be animation.
Okay. Because you were an artist as a kid.
Yeah, I was doing fine arts, but I knew even then, from the age of 14, I was going to be doing something in the field of animation or art.
Yeah. So, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So what were your influences as a kid? What did you really get into?
For sure, like the Looney Tunes, for sure, absolutely. And I had those, what are those? What do you call those? Things you would, little reels that you would look at frame by frame. It was a little toy.
That's right.
And we had a bunch of the Looney Tunes, so I could see the Roadrunner frame by frame and how crazy things would get stretched out.
Those things.
They even had Disney Snow White ones, and it was very beautiful. You just shine it, put it up to the light, and you can look in there. And Viewmaster, thank you.
That's right.
I want to find one of those.
Okay, so it wasn't moving; it was the still frames.
Yeah, no, but you would move, but you could hold on a frame and study it.
Interesting.
And I would also freeze frame with the old VHS.
Right.
Tape. We had. Do you remember those Just for Laughs gags? They would have interstitials with these little green characters. You know the ones that in the festival in the summertime.
That's Canadian. It's very Canadian.
Okay, well, I was freeze framing that. I remember in elementary school we had a project to design a comic book.
Yeah.
So I just plagiarized. I just started drawing those characters.
Oh, that's cool.
And then later on, I would actually meet the guy, the artist Vittorio, and did a project with him. So
you graduated from there, or did you go on to another school?
Okay, so I went to fine arts first year just to take general ceramics, sculpture, drawing, painting.
Yeah.
I took that for a couple of years, and then I got admitted into the Capilano College animation program.
Capilano?
Yeah, Capilano. Now it's Capilano University, but they had just started.
Okay, so you're in a completely different world that I have no.
But it was one of the teachers from Algonquin who came over and started it.
Okay.
So,
wow, that's cool. Yeah. So that was a good program then.
Yeah, that was a really good program, actually. We were the second class to graduate. So
really?
A bit of the guinea pigs, but I think of 20 people who started the class, maybe 14 of us graduated. Some left early because they got jobs, and some just didn't.
But at some point you did camera work and that sort of thing.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
What did we have there? We had just a simple line tester.
Okay. Video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, onto VHS.
Okay.
Yeah. The hard way. And then my first job at Michael Mills, we had the old, what's it called, the PAR system? We had the big giant camera. We would save our line tests on floppy disks.
Okay.
The Amiga.
Yeah, right. I remember those floppies. Those, they weren't little.
No, they're giant. I mean, this thing is a huge machine. And then we had to, when we shot our line test, we had our dope sheet, obviously. We had to know exactly what was happening. Yeah. Not like today, you just press play and we have it so easy now.
Boy, those were the days.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, incredible. Yeah. So you went from there to Michael Mills?
So I graduated in the spring of '98, and then I went to the Ottawa Animation Festival with my portfolio and a one-way ticket, just hoping I would get a job in Ottawa, which I did.
Oh, really?
And then, I got a job. But within that trip, I came to visit Montreal. My grandfather was living here, and I still have family here. At the time, my grandfather was there, and I had a list of all the studios in Montreal. Okay. And he insisted I go to Michael Mills. He drove me there. I didn't want to go. I thought it would be an inconvenience. It would be too much trouble for him. He's like in his 80s. Huh. He drove me there.
Really?
And so I show up at Michael Mills. I had made an appointment, and I put in my VHS demo reel, and a youth soccer game appeared. And I'm thinking, oh my Lord, I swear this is my demo reel song here. So I get up and I'm rewinding, fast forwarding. I couldn't find it. Finally, I found it.
Oh, it's in the middle of the soccer
so
game.
Michael Mills is a really intimidating character too. I didn't want to waste his time, and I just thought, oh my God. So I impressed him with my demo reel. And then, so I went back to Ottawa to work on a hose house, just doing character.
Studio.
Amberwood. Amberwood, they changed it.
Okay.
Like Lacewood, Amberwood, I think. They kept changing names, but so there I was doing character posing.
And it was commercials, or it was?
No, it was strictly it was Hotown's TV show for the Disney Channel.
Really?
About firefighting dogs, but they couldn't show fire in the series. So
interesting concept.
Yeah. So I did that for a couple months, and then a girl from the studio, production manager, was driving across Canada to move in with her boyfriend. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe this is a good time to go back to Vancouver. There, Joseph was starting up.
Oh, yeah.
So all my buddies...
King of Dreams.
Yes. So I thought, I'll go work on Joseph. I didn't pass the animation test. I messed it up big time. But they were going to hire me to work as an assistant. So I thought, okay. So I drove across Canada with her. Nearly died in the Rockies in a snowstorm. And made it in barely made it. And but then the job date kept getting pushed back. So at one point I thought...
So you're in Vancouver with no job.
I'm in Vancouver now, living back at home. No job, waiting for the start date that kept getting pushed. And then I get a phone call one Friday from Michael Mills. Would you like to start work at our studio? I said, sure. He said, when can you be there? I said, I'll be there Monday.
Wow.
Because I had travel passes through my family, right? So I literally jumped on an airplane on Sunday and went to work on Monday. And then, ironically, on Monday, the day I left, I get the call to start on Joseph. And I said, well, I'm going to Montreal, that's it. So I'm glad I did, because now I'm here. So.
Now you're here. Yeah. And you're glad you did.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm really thankful that my grandfather followed through and insisted I go to Michael Mills.
What kind of stuff did you do at Michael Mills? What they do for you?
At the time, we were doing like small commercials that would come in, like really simple stuff for Canadian Tire that would overlay on the hockey games. Like during they would just pan to like a section of the audience, darken the screen, and then you would have these cars drive by, whatever the commercial was trying to sell, tires or washer fluid or whatever. And then we also had a series of commercials he was producing for TV stations around North America that you could, like a pet store commercial, and then they would just drop in their logo. So they would buy pre-made commercials. So this was his business idea, and I'm not sure how well it kind of for him, but we produced about 20 commercials, and we were just given the concept. Okay, here, do a pet store commercial. Wow. And so you'd design board. Luckily, I was under the guidance of Chris Goodkey, who was the main animator there, and he oftentimes would set up like the designs and the layouts, and then I would just go in and animate. And I got to tie down a couple of commercials that were done at a house from a guy that had worked in LA. So I remember the hardware commercial, and just getting to work with really nice roughs was really a good learning experience.
Yeah, for sure. So working with really good top talent there.
Yeah.
That's great. That was a good influence.
I think so.
So how many years were you there?
I think 98, 2 years.
2 years?
It was near the end of his career. Michael Mills had a great career in the 80s and 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then I think he shut down the studio. That's why we all got laid off.
Oh, okay. So you were there till the end?
Pretty much. And I went on to I guess I worked on St. Paul Street. They were doing animation corrections for a series with a different studio now.
Okay.
And then I'd heard about the Triplets that was being produced down the road. Okay. And a few of my friends had gone over there already, and I thought, well, maybe I'll try to jump on that project if I can, and that was another story altogether.
No doubt about that. That's a trial by fire, no?
Yeah, because I think I got the test, and well, first of all, Sylvain saw my reel and he said, no, your stuff's too cartoony for this film, so I didn't. And then they called me in for the test, and I said, well, Sylvain already said my stuff's too cartoony, and I said, well, just come and do it anyways. The test was a dog getting up from a seated, from a lying down position.
Right.
So I did that, and then I wound up doing another test. And Sylvain said at this point, here's a character that's not been animated. It was the character at the end that wears those earmuffs, and he's about the same size as the old lady. He's like the mechanic.
Okay.
Because the mechanic hasn't been animated yet. Here, do a walk cycle. I thought, okay. So I'm in the studio coming in every day, and I thought, walk cycles are so boring. Like, anyone can do a walk cycle, right, at this point? Yeah. So I took a layout, and that was lying around, and it was a room with a staircase. So I took the mechanic character, and I animated a little scene. So he walks in, he hears a noise, he rubs his ear with his rag, he clears his ear out, and then he runs up the stairs. So that was my test, and it blew him away because he wasn't expecting that. He was just expecting a walk cycle, and then he actually had the whole studio gather around, and then he played it, and then he said, okay, now, and he went frame by frame, he said, now, fix these impossible poses. Essentially tie it down and make it work, right?
Right.
So I did, and I didn't even have to show him after that point. And then he threw me into the production, and
then it's sink or swim there.
Yeah, that's it. And I lasted a year. It wasn't easy. I mean, a lot of people, it was like a rotating door. It seemed people would come in, work for 2 weeks, get yelled at or have their drawings torn up, and then they would leave.
Get their drawings torn
Oh, yeah,
up?
that happened to me, for sure. Yeah, but I didn't leave. I stuck around.
Really?
I showed up the weekend after he did that. And then I think I gained some respect. Somehow, because I was probably the weakest animator of the 20 animators they had there, because these guys had worked for Disney Paris.
Yeah.
A lot of experience, you know. And I was just learning. It was my first film.
Wow.
And so, but I stuck it out. Yeah.
So what was I'm sure the atmosphere was real toxic there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some days you were told, like, we would talk amongst ourselves, like, don't show them anything today. I would wait actually until Friday afternoon to show him my stuff, because that's when the beers would start flowing. I'd wait till he had a beer in his hand and show him my scenes.
Wow.
I did a little. I had anxiety problems, I think, back then, but you know, you have to show him your scene at some point if you want to get good. Yeah.
Like, what kinds of things would he get upset about?
The mouse not working. Click, what? And then I remember one time he threw it. I mean, it's his film, it's his characters. If you didn't draw them properly, there were no model sheets either. There were some maquettes, like some 3D models, and there were some loose drawings, but there were no model sheets. You turn around. But no, he helped me. I mean, at some point he was friendly with me. I think after that incident, when I showed up on the weekend, he started helping me out rather than.
An incident where you showed up on the weekend?
Yeah, like literally that. So say the Friday was when he tore the scene. And the ironic part about that part is he pointed out a drawing and said, this drawing sucks. But it was one of his drawings that he'd done. So, I
remember you told me about that.
Go figure. But,
that's funny.
I guess I could have walked out and not come back, but I decided to just keep going.
So it's amazing they got that thing made with that kind of turnover.
I think at some point all the producers from around the world came and they had an intervention. There was a moment that they, I think, threatened to take them off the film. It's not a bad thing to have on your resume either. Like, even if it's not my best animation, if I knew then what I know now, the animation of the mafia characters would have been much better. You know?
So when that thing finished, then there was an exodus from the studio?
I believe so. I left.
You left before that?
A little bit before that, yeah. I think a lot of those guys went back to France, and people went on.
And where'd you go?
Where did I go? That's a very good question. Those years were, there wasn't a lot of work. I started working at Pascal Blay, doing some effects, tones, and I animated on a commercial as well, and Just freelancing. Sardine Production started up. I was one of their first animators on
Oh,
it.
really?
Do you remember the Little Blue Cow doing the
Yeah,
Olympics?
yes, I do.
That was me.
That was you.
That was me.
The little blue cow.
Little Blue Cow.
Let me shake your hand.
Thank you. You know what? The biggest compliment I got was that Ghislain, the producer at Sardine, got a call from somebody, said, "Did you see the commercial that Pascal Blay did? The Little Blue Cow?" And he said, "No, that was us." So that was a real compliment because you guys, with Al and doing always good work, getting all the nice commercial jobs.
Right, for sure. How big was Sardine back then?
It was tiny. I worked there before there was any real production. We were just doing commercials and a project with Vittorio, the guy who designed the Just for Laughs character. He had a Christmas special that got destroyed overseas, and we had to come in and
Fix it
a bit.
Yeah.
So,
Huh, interesting. So that lasted for
a couple years, or a year and a half. I was their lead supervising animator for a while there, and then I met some soccer tournament people that we traveled to New York, and so I ended up in New York after that, like through the soccer tournament crowd, just going on a little adventure of sorts. I didn't have any commitment
for sure.
other than my job. I was still technically employed by Sardine when I told them in New York I'm not coming back. And
so what'd you do in New York?
I was just spending some time in New York. I had my demo reel. I went to Iceland for soccer tournament. This is the story. I went to Iceland with my demo reel because I wanted to work in Iceland for some reason.
Crazy,
So-
of all places.
so
Had you been to Iceland before?
Never. I always wanted to go there. And
Really?
so I contacted the only animation studio at the time, I guess. And
In Iceland?
in Iceland, I made an appointment. Hilmar is his name. I've met him since, and he's a nice guy. So he said, "Sure, come on by, show us your stuff." So I went, and the animators were expecting us, me and my buddy Sean, both animators and roommates. And they said, "Oh, great work, guys, but we don't have any jobs, but hey, let's go for lunch, have a couple beers." And they showed us their wall of awards, and it was funny because we won all the awards. We're the only animation studio in Iceland. So there I am in New York now with my demo reel.
Yeah.
And so I sent out a bunch of... I went on AWN at the time. That was where you found out where the jobs were. So there had been a job posting a month before for a studio Flickr Lab in New York. So I said, okay. So I emailed with the header in the subject line, Triplets of Belleville animator looking for work, because I figured if something's going to grab their attention, it's that, which it did. And then so I scheduled a meeting just about the time I was going to take the bus back to Montreal. It was in the fashion district, I guess, near the bus terminal in New York. So there I was with my suitcase, and I walked in. As I walked to the studio, I had like an inner voice telling me that they're going to offer you a job, so you better be prepared. So don't be ambivalent. Haven't answered. Do you want to do it? Yes. So I decided then I'll take the job before they even met me. So sure enough, I go up, show my demo reel. And they were desperate for an animator. They needed to finish this production. They just began a production, so they needed an animator, and so they didn't let me go. I stayed there. I didn't take my bus back, and I worked for a few weeks on that project. I had some soccer friends of mine who let me stay at their place, and I rented a room somewhere eventually. And then finally, after that project, they led to more work, so they got me the official work visa, and I ended up working in New York for 4.5 years, and living there for 5 years. Yeah.
What a time that was, huh?
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah,
It's incredible.
Yeah.
What's the name of the studio?
Flickr Lab.
Flickr Lab.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're still Flickr Lab. I know they still, maybe they changed names, or maybe they're still around. Yeah. Great people.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. Harold Moss. Yeah, good guy.
That's great. Yeah. So they were doing mostly commercials.
Mostly commercials, short format, little spots for Comedy Central. We did the Tech Jansen for Stephen Colbert. He had a little cartoon there.
Yes,
they had already produced season 1, but it was really flashy and cut like a cutout style, and they wanted to plus it out and make it more like the 80s style cartoon. So they had a pitch for all the studios in New York that wanted to take on season 2. And all they were asking for was like a few drawings of their main characters take chance. So I asked Harold, I said, how long do we have? He said 2 weeks. I said, can we do something here? He said, go ahead. Yep. So I looked around the studio. I had a couple of good character designers to use and layout guy, and then I storyboarded out a little 30-second piece with Tech Jansen, and he fights these alien monsters, blows up a warehouse, and then gets the girl and kisses the girl at the end, which is totally in character. And does a little flip and, explosions. And I think all the other studios did was those drawings that they were asking. So we got the job easily. And, that was fun. So we did that for about a year. And then when the 2008 financial crisis hit, that's when they axed that show. So that was it. Okay. And then that was about the same time where we were doing some preschool shows, and I really was losing interest in work at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I got a test for a feature film that was being produced in Montreal. The Jour de Corneille, I think.
What's it called?
The Day of the Crows.
Day of the Pros?
Crows.
Crows, Day of the Crows.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
It's probably because it's never made it to theaters, or at least not here. It was French, France.
Okay, so it was in French.
Yeah, it was in French.
Okay. Day of the Crows.
Day of the Crows.
Did they translate it into English?
I'm not sure. Yeah. Jean Reno played the male lead.
Right.
And so the project was split up between, I think, 4 studios, us being the only Canadian studio, and I did the test for that. And I got a job, and I kept working freelance jobs, and one in Toronto, Headgear, and here and there.
What style was Day of the Crows? Was it very cartoony, or was it more
very realistic? Actually,
realistic.
Not very cartoony at all.
Oh.
Yeah, it had a nice design style. I would say more like just like French comic book illustration. Very realistic.
Interesting. Was it fun?
Not really, because we were all rusty. I'd been animating at Flickr Lab. Once in a while, I'd have a nice commercial to really dig into and do some nice traditional animation. But for the most part, it was really limited, so I was kind of rusty. So going back to this was tough, and a lot of people got let go when we couldn't meet quota, and I got put on as a tie-down artist for the lead animator, who was from France, who'd worked at Disney for 5 years in Australia, and who could just crank out the work. And so I think a couple of us got put to be his assistants, and that's where I really learned again.
Okay.
So I wish I had been put there at the beginning of the production.
Right.
We all should have been, actually, looking back.
Yeah, for sure.
It's too late now.
Yeah.
But it's good experience.
Okay. Cool.
In the end, it doesn't have to be fun all the time.
No, it doesn't.
As long as it ends, you come out stronger, I guess, I ended up at another studio doing another French film, a 3D film with 2D dream sequences and flashbacks. So I worked on that as well. What's it called? In French, it's Louise en hiver, so Louise in wintertime. It's a nice film. Oh, and then as well, in between that, in 2014, I worked on The Little Prince. That was fun. Yeah. Got to do a couple of 2D sequences. In fact, the first shot of the film is mine.
So that was here in Montreal?
That was here in Montreal, yeah.
What was the studio?
Micros,
that's right.
and TTK. There's a stop-motion studio as well. Big project.
So how'd you get into 3D? Did you just dabble in it?
I dabbled in it. I was just trying to expand my horizons when it came to making money, because if you can't count on 2D work coming in, you gotta...
Yeah, I was dying.
Yeah.
I remember that era myself.
And so I think, and as a teenager, I remember playing around with 3D software when it first came out, so I'd give it a shot. And I enjoyed it. I never took any professional courses, but I had friends help me out here and there, and looked online for tutorials and trial and error,
Yeah, for sure. That's how you learn.
Yeah, that's it, like anything.
Yeah, exactly. So, what did you work in that?
I got called into an interview on Cineseats for
Cinesite.
Cinesite. There must have been a miscommunication there because I sat down with the director and the producer, and I thought I was being called in for a 2D job. And right away it was clear that there was no 2D job. Oh. So how did that happen? So I had my laptop anyways, and I said, well, since I'm here, I'll show you my 3D test. And so I showed, I forget his name, the director. Anyways, I showed him a little test of a boy doing some parkour, running up a box and just climbing up and dodging imaginary creatures or something. And he was pretty impressed. He said, you did that just by yourself without any training? I said, yeah. He said, okay, keep doing it, and soon there'll be a job for you, most likely, like if you keep at it. Okay. But then I think I just kept getting more 2D work, so I didn't... Oh, yeah, I signed on to do a contract with DHX doing... that's where that Chris Weem was doing Peabody and Sherman show. They had reserved certain select scenes in each episode for traditional animation, I guess you could say. Yeah. So we were doing the drawing.
Oh, okay. So, but did you go out there for that to Vancouver?
Working remotely. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I had I got that job when I was in Ottawa in line for beer because in front of me was an old classmate of mine, Craig Roberts, who was directing the show.
Oh, there you go.
So he said, so I was out of work. World. He was looking for an animator, and. Yeah, it is a small world, isn't it? Yeah.
He was in Montreal?
Well, no, Ottawa.
Oh, he's on Ottawa.
Yeah, it was the Ottawa Animation Festival.
Okay, the Animation Festival. Yeah. So that's really cool.
Which is a great place to find work.
Yeah?
I think. It's happened twice for me, so.
I've only been there once.
You gotta go. It's fun. Did you go last year?
I went last year.
Yeah. Recruiting, right?
So from Prince, Little Prince, you went to...
I should have brought my resume, Tom.
You should have, yeah. It should be imprinted in your brain, as often as you had to refer it and update it.
Well, I think it was Little Prince and then Louise in Wintertime.
Yeah.
And then the Peabody and Sherman.
Oh, yes, right. Peabody and Sherman.
Yeah, and then Villeneuve. And this job I also got going for beer. Just ran into the producer of Louise Univers, who's producing his next film, Villeneuve, which is premiering next week, by the way.
Okay.
Traditional on paper, on 3s.
Really?
Inked. Final look was inked, so I was roughing out. I came into the show rather late. Like Jens and Francois had already been animating the main characters, and I had gotten all the incidental characters, which is great because I didn't have to be on model. Eventually I did all the characters near the end when they were rushing to get it all done, but it was a really nice experimental film. I wouldn't call it experimental, I'm sorry, but it seemed experimental for me because there was never a storyboard. I didn't know how long the shots were. They were just 2 seconds, 3 seconds. So, yeah, the director was editing as he went along.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. And, yeah, animating on 3s, and...
it's called Villeneuve.
Villeneuve, yeah. You'll be able to see it in theaters if you want.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that was fun. And
was it a good story?
I think so. Yeah.
It's in French.
It's in French. There's probably subtitles. Yeah. So that was fun. Yeah, like I said, I was just going for a beer one day, and I ran into the producer, and he told me about this project that was they're producing, and he thought I'd be a good fit. And so I came by, I met the director, and that was it. So I worked there for about. Of course, these 4-month jobs always turn into a year.
Yeah.
So that was fun. That was a fun year.
Okay, so your last job before Tonic was Villeneuve.
It's been a while, eh?
Yeah. And you've been able to do 2D animation for all those years.
Yeah.
That's about, 20 years?
Yeah.
You survived as a 2D animator for 20 years in Montreal.
Yeah. I had to go to New York for a few years, but
yeah. That's incredible because, you think 2D's dead, because especially during that period, there was hardly anything.
It's true.
But you managed to find stuff.
Or stuff found me. It's hard to say,
stuff found you.
Yeah. I think if you're busy and you have a goal in mind, I think things will just attract things to you. Which is
interesting.
I didn't want to compromise. I didn't want to. I mean, the only compromise I was willing to make was to do 3D, but because it still was performance and acting and motion, but I really, really love drawing. So I always tried to find a way to make that
your priority. Yeah, for sure. No, I understand.
And when I was getting towards the end at Flickr Lab, I was whatever thing I would start, they would say, Phil, okay, don't make it too nice, because we got a budget here. So when I started hearing that, that was time to go. Even though I loved living in New York, but I was burnt out as well. It's just too much partying.
Yeah, that's funny. It always comes down to that budget. Just a quick story. I had a friend who worked on the very first Simpsons TV episode.
I've seen that one.
The very first one. No, you didn't see the
on
first
the Tracy
one.
Ullman. No,
not the first one.
Okay.
The first one, they animated it, and when Matt Groening saw it, he threw it all out and said reanimate it because it's animated too well.
Oh.
So they had to reanimate it with less quality.
Yeah.
Because it was setting the bar for the rest of the series.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. It's hard to make something not look good when you're used to making it look good.
That's right. You have to unlearn.
It's almost like you have to draw with your opposite hand.
Your opposite hand. That's a good analogy. Yeah. I'll continue my conversation with Phil Lockerby in our next episode. Find us on the web at shaffercreative.studio. Music is by Lee Rosevear.